Huh?
I had answered a few in the past, either in the comments section or in the format of a short video. The most recent one being the spate of mostly female long-tailed macaques hanging out in a nondescript temple in Battambang province of Cambodia that died shortly after what seemed like a normal uneventful labor, with the delivery of a healthy fit baby. Some viewers have left me with the message that those who died were invariably given a drink beforehand. Anyway, each time when a mother died, the orphan newborn would become a sensation that generates hundreds and thousands of views for those channels. Things seem to have quietened down a bit until another request for an opinion from a concerned viewer on another baby monkey, this time in the forest of Angkor Wat, where all Cambodian monkey channels first began nearly 3 years ago in summer 2016. It was posted about 2 weeks ago, but I didn't come round to watch it until a few days ago, as I have been really busy and too preoccupied with what's going on in Hong Kong with all the protests and the current political impasse there. Obviously, by the time I could find time to watch the unfolding saga, the infant long-tailed concerned, Janet, had long been rescued by the usual team of cameramen there, and this time a proper vet was allegedly involved in its care. But on closer inspection, something just didn't add up and the whole saga seems really fishy to me. Here are my thoughts.
Okay, we are right here. Okay. Let's go here.
Yes, that's the vet, Ork Hock C.
Ork Hock C.
And the treatment consisted of dabs of betadine, a topical antiseptic, and a light dressing afterwards. He couldn't do more. He really can't. Like all other so-called vets in Cambodia, he has no formal education in veterinary medicine as we know in developed countries. He basically runs a business to spay dogs and cats, something a layman can learn to do with time, like stitching up simple wounds or giving injections. He, however, is a decent person, for he knows his limits. Treating a monkey is far beyond his area of expertise. He didn't seem to appear in the 2 videos I saw afterwards where the team was seen treating her hands in a home setting. For that, this person has my respect, for he didn't play along like the fake vet they hired in Laurie's farce last year. Yes, that fake vet nearly killed Laurie with his rough handling and inappropriate treatment of a simple closed head injury. That repeated overdosage of an aminoglycoside antibiotic had shot Laurie's balance system to pieces by damaging her inner ears. She could not walk, climb like other afterwards, besides the less apparent damage to her kidneys. I have to say what they did to Janet's hands were totally inappropriate. She had what we called in medicine as dry gangrene, that is dead leathery skin protecting whatever is still viable underneath in an aseptic casing. Most vascular surgeons would leave dry gangrene alone and wait until the dead tissue separates naturally and reassess. What they had done was to destroy that dead leathery skin and expose the underlying raw tissue to the environment. And that ordeal had to be extremely excruciating. Imagine salt and water and betadine on a raw wound. The result was massive inflammation. The swelling so resulted strangulated the already compromised blood supply to the fingers, leading to more damage. Honestly, do you see that as an improvement? This is the most recent footage I could find. They've managed to turn her previously aseptic dry gangrene into a septic wet gangrene. Both hands are now swollen because of a raging infection underneath. But macaques have amazing immunity. The fact that she is still wolfing down like she has never seen any food before suggests to me she probably will survive, except with the loss of most functions of her formerly still salvageable hands, if left by themselves alone in the wild. First of all, there are no vets as we understand in developed countries in Cambodia. The communist regime of Khmer Rouge had destroyed the country totally during its reign between 1975 and 1978 by killing almost everyone who had an education in the country, a harrowing 1.5 to 2 million people in total, almost a quarter of the entire population at that time. Establishments of religion, education, healthcare were all razed to the ground. The systemic genocide had left the country in ruins. Fellow communist country Vietnam invaded Cambodia in 1979 and ousted Pol Pot's Khmer Rouge and installed another communist regime, led by Heng Samrin, a more moderate and former member of Khmer Rouge, to rule over Cambodia. The succeeding communist regime propped up by Vietnam really had a tough job in hand to rebuild the country from scratch again, and it's only until recently that it had finally turned its attention to veterinary education properly with the opening of the first faculty of veterinary medicine at the Royal University of Agriculture in the capital Phnom Penh in 2013. Prior to the establishment of a proper veterinary faculty in 2013, only paravets were trained relying on antiquated Soviet teaching material to supply personnel in the field of animal husbandry. These paravets have only rudimentary working knowledge in treating common ailments in livestock. The first intake of 100 students didn't start until 2015, and the first batch of properly trained veterinary doctors with a degree of DVM won't be available until 2021 at the earliest, as the course should last for 6 years. Even if we consider some of those would-be paravets on a BSc course who have decided to become a proper vet with a doctor degree, it would still take them an additional 2 to 3 years before the conversion is complete. But much like veterinary medicine in most developing countries, the emphasis of the course will be on farm animals. There may be a few who would eventually decide to specialize in small animals like dogs and cats, but primate medicine is an entirely new ball game. Like elsewhere, only very few vets even in developed countries will have the necessary experience to handle and treat primates like macaques. Curriculum in most vet schools do not cover primates. This is a very specialized field, and only those who had worked in a primate research center or better still a zoo with primate exhibits are capable of treating macaques. For instance, in Hong Kong, of the 800 vets registered there, only a few have the working knowledge to handle macaques, and they invariably work for zoos in Hong Kong. One such as Dr. Paolo Martelli, chief veterinary surgeon at Ocean Park, who was chief vet at Singapore Zoo before coming to Hong Kong. But Siem Reap is fortunate to have two proper vets in the region. One is Dr. Julia Stenkat at Angkor Center for Conservation of Biodiversity, 30 kilometers north of Siem Reap. The other is Dr. Trish Johansson, who runs a private practice in town. Dr. Julia Stenkat probably is the more experienced of the two, as she had a dozen primates under her care at the center. They all know about the existence of Dr. Stenkat at the center, indeed they should. Remember the fuss over Salita, Lorry from the past? Indeed, I have heard they had asked for her help very recently with a paraplegic adult macaque. If the injury was indeed a result of a poacher's snare that had cut off the supply of blood to the hands, there's really no reason to fear asking for help from Dr. Stenkat again. Even if she has no capacity to treat her, she could at least offer her professional opinion so that they could avoid doing more harm to her. They are not medically competent to improvise treatment. Is the need to film an injured animal so that they could have something to post across a dozen channels, old and new, more important than the actual welfare of the animal they pledged they were helping, knowing full well that Dr. Stenkat really is the only one who is qualified to help? Honestly, that flashy new motorcade should have gone in the center's direction. A quick search will tell you that they always ask someone other than a proper vet in most of the so-called rescue for help. Why is this so? Perhaps a proper vet would always ask about the story, and if he or she doesn't think the story fits with what she sees and knows, the animal will be confiscated, like in the case of another injured infant macaque, Amy, so I have heard. I know they are all very enthusiastic about baby monkey rescue. Some have even traveled to the future to bring us homegrown, fully qualified vets from 2020 to give us countless videos of vets treating their captive animals. Time travel is expensive. I suppose that justifies the numerous ads they have to put in those hundreds of videos across several dozen channels to fund this endeavor. We have all watched Avengers: Endgame. It is important not to upset the flow of time and to split the universe into multiverse. These vets from the future all have to be remained faceless without ID. But we know that even these vets from the future aren't qualified to treat macaques. No wonder their clients never do well. It is dangerous to play with medicine. To sedate a baby in distress, an opioid must have been used on this baby. Note the highly constricted and unreactive pupil. I suspect a barbiturate had also been used too to tranquilize her, as she appeared so spaced out in her latter days. Toxic side effects of these drugs culminating in her body could be the cause of her death later on while at Wildlife Alliance. She would have lived if left alone with her troop.
Oh my God! That man! Oh my God! Now I find Janet.
Honestly, how did he know it was a monkey from that distance? X-ray, I suppose.
The bad you man. She called Janet. Janet.
It could be a small mammal or indeed anything without opening it. Considering monkeys aren't the only animals there.
Hello. Here. Oh my God.
Besides, how the hell he knew it was Janet, so specific already.
Yeah, no,
And why wasn't Janet crying for her troop?
Yes,
We've been
Janet.
told the animal had been missing for a
Janet
good
here.
24 hours. We had seen how Janet was constantly crying for her mum and troop while in captivity. It really does look like that the animal had only been put in there not long ago. At least the anxiety of being separated from its troop hadn't quite set in yet.
Janet, 100% Janet. Janet. Oh my God.
She's as quiet as a doll.
Này này, trên gì can phòng
Now we found the baby monkey. Someone steal baby monkey.
And if indeed it's a criminal act as nefarious as it has been suggested, why did the perpetrator leave his prized animal hung up so near the road which hundreds of villagers use every day to commute between the archaeological site and the city of Siem Reap?
And put here.
Honestly, they are only a few yards away from the busiest road in Angkor.
Oh my God. Janet.
Baby monkey.
In this clip from another video, you clearly see the traffic and hear it too.
Now we take baby monkey to last her life to mom.
How convenient, just right across the road where her mum Jane and her troop were. Honestly, it was so easy to hide a baby monkey in a nondescript bag like a small backpack to take everywhere. I really don't know why the perpetrator didn't just take the animal and leave in the first place. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And if we consider it in the grander scheme of things, why would someone want to steal a nearly 1-year-old long-tailed macaque? First of all, there are thousands upon thousands of these semi-urbanized long-tailed macaques in Southeast Asia. They breed all year round and thrive on foraging for easy food from garbage dumps and handouts. There are so many of them they are normally considered a nuisance in cities and pests in farming villages. Take Malaysia for example, the authority culled around 70,000 these semi-urbanized long-tailed every year between 2013 and 2016 alone in the city of Kuala Lumpur. In Indonesia, the authority hires snipers to kill them. Even in developed countries like Singapore, the affluent city-state culls them too, between 500 to 600 annually. These semi-urbanized long-tailed macaques could not be exported as lab animals for testing either, as they have been exposed to countless chemicals already because of their foraging habit living near a city. Their biochemistry and physiology have been altered to adapt to living in a contaminated environment. There are strict rules regarding the source of macaques destined for medical and pharmaceutical use. Only trusted, farm-raised and truly wild macaques are allowed. Like those long-tailed captured from the wild in Mauritius or those raised in designated farms in Cambodia and elsewhere. There are very few wild long-tailed macaques left in Cambodia. Most of what you see are pockets of interbred descendants of wild and released pet macaques, like the ones you see in the forest of Angkor. The only truly wild long-tailed are only found in more remote corners like in the dense tropical jungle of Cardamom Mountains in southwest Cambodia, a long way from the province of Siem Reap. One can't just capture a macaque and sell it. Period. They don't make good pets either. Adults are difficult to control and babies are only cute for a few months or so. As a matter of fact, they fetch a low price on the market as pets. A baby would only cost you around $5 in the pet market in Indonesia, and anything older than a few months don't sell at all and they are dumped eventually by their sellers, contributing to the population of urbanized long-tailed macaques in cities in Indonesia. There are strict rules regarding import or export of primates. Someone from, say, Cambodia just can't export a long-tailed to a buyer elsewhere. So a pet monkey might cost north of a few $1,000s in the States. They are all locally bred. They are mostly worthless in their native countries. Imagine, Cambodia is many times poorer than Indonesia. How much do you think a baby long-tailed would cost there if there is indeed a market for them? A 1-year-old long-tailed is practically worthless and, Honestly, even these Cambodian channels have captured many times how these pet macaques were dumped without a care in the forest of Angkor by their owners, and they are of the more popular and cuter pig-tailed type. No locals want the faster-growing long-tailed as pets. They don't even want to keep cuter pig-tailed macaque yearlings as pets. Why on earth would anyone want to steal a long-tailed and one not a baby anymore and maimed for life? Very intriguing indeed. Indeed, these descendants of abandoned pets are so trusting of humans. It's far easier to catch a baby with just a bit of food and distraction. I mean, look, we've seen how easy and effortless they have been doing it on video from time to time. Why would an allegedly poacher go to great lengths to try to use a snare? And ruined it in the process when he could catch it without hurting it at all? And for food or the non-existent pet trade, one with every parts intact surely would fetch a better price, right? But honestly, these semi-wild and urbanized macaques are everywhere to be found all over in villages in Cambodia. Why on earth would someone come to a place with guards like the Angkor forest to attempt to steal one? Why bother? Honestly, if I hadn't been told that these guys were the saviors of monkeys, I thought they were just a bunch of poachers. I've been told that there's another video with another allegedly kidnap attempt of an older monkey called Jack. People told me that video was fun to watch too, but I couldn't find it unfortunately. I think it has been taken down by its owner. Of course, officials are easy to bribe in Cambodia, after all it is probably one of the most, if not the most corrupted country in Southeast Asia. So officials could have colluded with poachers too. But I really can't see why they would want to steal a long-tailed macaque in the first place, and one that's worth nothing except to those who have followed her on YouTube for long. The poacher must know this particular yearling pulls on the heartstrings of her followers. But then there are many things I don't understand there, like the many fake orphanages that exploit on children and tourists in Siem Reap, or the fake Cambodian immigration control that exists on its border with Thailand. The latter is still operating as we speak despite countless travelers like myself had complained and reported it to the appropriate authority. They all exist and run with impunity with the blessing and protection of local officials. If something that elaborate could be pulled off, I suppose to ask a few of them to pose for an occasion shouldn't cost one an arm and a leg. So to recap, things we should take home are: 1. There are no vets in Cambodia as we understand in developed countries. The first homegrown batch, with proper training, won't be available until 2021 at the earliest. And even they can't treat macaques. 2. All these rescues of baby monkeys have made things worse for them so far. 3. As they for some reason have so far avoided to seek help and advice from those qualified to do so. 4. They want their valiant attempts to be immortalized in as many videos and channels as possible. 5. Playing with medicine is dangerous. 6. Time travel is expensive. 7. Semi-wild or urbanized monkeys are abundant and worthless in Southeast Asia. Truly wild ones are endangered and they only exist in remote mountains and their numbers are dwindling. These semi-wild ones are on the increase and in many places are cold. But why have there been so many incidents and unexplained injuries and death with these monkeys over there in the forest of Angkor and elsewhere? We didn't see any of these except roadkill in the first 18 months when monkey videos first began in the forest of Angkor. What has since happened there? And why are there so many channels with similar emphasis on mishaps of monkeys, especially with babies? Some people have said we are seeing more such things because there are more people videoing there. If so, why have we never seen how any such incidents had happened so far? Why have we been seeing only the aftermath every single time? Probability dictates that we should see at least some of these happenings, but so far, no such luck. Morbidity rate and mortality rate should never change if indeed everything remains the same, except that we have more observers. Injuries and death are something hard to miss and we didn't see that much in the first 18 months with these videos. An analogy would be like a building with more CCTVs, they shouldn't cause a rise in homicide and suicide rate with its inhabitants, should they? What's happening there? This will be the subject in my investigation video next week. Stay tuned. Before I finish, my dear viewers, perhaps you would like to check out this article and use Google Translate to find out what it says. Indeed, YouTubing is a big business in Cambodia for a lot of unscrupulous people there. Here is the link, or you could find it in the video description below.